So this is Money Matters. We're going to talk about financial aid, the billing and how to pay the bill, as well as student employment opportunities that are on campus. So the financial aid office is located in this building just on the first floor of the Harper Center, right by Card Services. Many of you were in line at Card Services this morning because we could see you and hear you from our office. So that's right where we are. Many of you even stopped in. I also have business cards up here. And I'm the Assistant Director of Financial Aid I work with the incoming freshmen. So many of you may have heard my name before, or we may have had communications before. But if you need to stop in and see us, we are open all day tomorrow on a walk-in basis. The designated time on your agendas says something, I think it's Creighton Expo maybe, information booth time, and it's from 11 to 1. But again, I'll be there all day, so you can stop in and see us anytime. If you have not yet filed FAFSA but still want to do so for the 18-19 academic year, it's not too late to apply. We do have a published priority filing date of April 1st, but that's only because the federal regulations require us to. We accept financial aid applications, the FAFSA, on a rolling basis. So if that's something that you still want to complete, go ahead and complete that, and then we'll provide your student with a financial aid package as soon as we retrieve that information from the federal government, which we do once a week. And so the FAFSA is something that does need to be submitted each year, and October 1st is the earliest you can file that for the upcoming academic year of 1920, so your student's sophomore year. The federal government selects about 33% of FAFSA filers nationwide for a process called verification. Essentially, it's like an audit. It's where we are required to verify the accuracy of the information that you provide on the FAFSA. And so if that's the case, please return all of the documents requested to our office as soon as possible. If you're not sure if your student has been selected for verification, definitely stop in and see us tomorrow. We'll be able to look that up and let you know if there's anything that we're missing before we can finalize your student's financial aid package. We do send friendly reminders about every 2 weeks, reminding your student that there are some requirements missing. I think we just sent one out last week because we've gotten a lot of questions about that. So definitely stop in tomorrow and see us if you have any questions about your student's financial aid package and if there are any documents that are missing. We are not able to disperse financial aid toward your student's tuition bill until we have finalized the financial aid package. And so financial aid disperses 3 business days before the start of the semester. So the semester starts on Wednesday, August 22nd. And so that Friday before that, which many of you will be moving in on that day, would be the day that financial aid disperses and pays toward your tuition bill. Half of the annual amount for fall, and then the other half will disperse in the spring semester. The different financial aid that you'll see as credits toward the bill would be any scholarships that your student has been awarded from the Office of Admissions, any grants that your student has been awarded based on the results of the FAFSA, which can be in the form of Creighton University grant funding or any federal or state Nebraska or any federal state grant funding that your student may be eligible to receive, and the loans that your student is eligible to borrow. Scholarships are awarded by the Office of Admissions, and so you would have received that information upon acceptance into the university. They're typically based on merit, so students' GPA, class rank, ACT or SAT test score. Most of our scholarships have a renewal requirement of a 2.5 minimum GPA. And so there are some supplemental scholarships that might have a slightly different GPA requirement. So if you want to know what the GPA requirement is for your student to have those scholarships renewed, it should be on the acceptance letter or on the supplemental letter that your student would have received with the award. Or you can stop into our office tomorrow and we'd be happy to look that information up for you. Because there's really nowhere that you can look it up other than on that letter that would have been sent to you. Grants, I think I mentioned, are based on the results of the FAFSA, so we would have determined your student's eligibility for those grants, for any grants from your FAFSA. And it is something that we do reevaluate each year, so it's important for you to file the FAFSA each year for us to make sure that your student is still eligible for the grant money that they've been awarded as an incoming freshman. There are sometimes changes to students' FAFSAs over the years, but for the most part, as long as your situation and income doesn't change significantly from year to year, you can expect the same financial aid package to be received each year. Some schools send out financial aid packages with the supplemental federal grants and Nebraska grant funding with their financial aid package up front. We get such a small amount from those programs that we pre-package it into the generic Creighton University grant and then go back in later and name it. So if you see changes to your student's financial aid package, such as a named scholarship or a named grant, it's just because we're replacing non-existent funds with an existing fund. But we are happy to answer any questions about any changes made to your financial aid package if you have any. The loan options that are available, we have a brand new loan option that we're awarding for our first time, which is the Creighton Undergraduate Institutional Loan. So your student must have demonstrated a financial need based on the results of the FAFSA to qualify for this loan. No interest will accrue for as long as your student is a student at Creighton and enrolled at least half-time. Repayment doesn't begin until 9 months after your student is no longer enrolled half-time, and then interest will begin to accrue at 6% after that. The funding is borrowed from Creighton, and so repayment will be made to Creighton. There will be some additional requirements that you may already see out there in your student's nest for the master promissory note for this loan, which is not yet available. So the master promissory note will be available later this month, and we will send out an email to your student's Creighton email account letting them know that they can now complete that master promissory note requirement. We're hoping to be able to do that by July 1st, so have your student be checking the Creighton email pretty regularly at this point for any missing requirements or stuff like this that becomes available. The maximum amount that we're able to award for the 18-19 academic year in this loan program is $1,800. And the loan is renewable each year as long as your student still demonstrates eligibility for the loan through the FAFSA process. The other loan option will be the federal direct loans, and these could be in the form of either subsidized or unsubsidized, or a combination of the two. Subsidized loans are need-based, and so that means that no interest will accrue on the loan for as long as your student is in school. And that will go for periods of undergraduate enrollment as well as beyond into any graduate or professional degree program that your student may pursue beyond undergrad. Unsubsidized loans anyone can qualify for. They are not need-based, but they do accrue interest while your student is in school. The maximum amount of the federal direct loans that your student can borrow as a freshman is $5,500. If your student demonstrates financial need, then $3,500 of it is subsidized, and the remaining would be unsubsidized, but not to exceed the $5,500. Otherwise, the federal direct loan program is the same. The interest rate is fixed at 5.045% for the 18-19 academic year. There are no payments that are required, again, for as long as your student is in school, although we do encourage families to pay on the interest if possible. And your student will receive monthly communication from the servicer of the loan regarding interest and how to make that payment. No payments will be required until 6 months after your student is no longer enrolled in at least a half-time program of study and still attending school. Some additional information: your student must complete a master promissory note as well as student loan entrance counseling before we are able to disperse any loan funds to the tuition bill. The funding comes from the federal government, but they will then immediately turn the funding over to a servicer. And then the servicer will service the loan on behalf of the government, and that is who your student will receive communication from. It could be any of 18 different servicers that the federal government partners with. Some of them are like Great Lakes, there's one called FIA, Navient, Nelnet. So if you're receiving any communications from entities that you're not familiar with and wondering why you're getting that communication, it would never hurt to check with us and make sure that it's a legitimate company and that you're receiving legitimate email or mail, and that yes, it is something that you should pay attention to or that your student should pay attention to. The funds are dispersed electronically and directly toward your student's tuition bill. So there's no exchanging of funds between the government and your student. They won't have to write a check to the business office or anything for those loan funds. They'll come electronically. And please keep in mind that there is a small origination fee that comes off the top of the loan of about $29 per disbursement, and that origination fee is 1.066%. Many of your students have received outside scholarships or have resources outside of Creighton that they will be receiving, and if this is the case, it's really important to let us know about these resources as soon as possible. We are required to include those outside scholarships or resources as a resource that your student is receiving as assistance to help pay for college. But there are also many times that the donor requires proof of enrollment or verification of enrollment to be sent to them, and I can do that as soon as your student registers for classes after tomorrow. And so the earlier I can get that ball rolling, the earlier the donor will release the funds to pay toward your student's tuition bill. So definitely let me know if that's something that needs to happen. Or there are times when the donor requires that a bill be sent to them or an invoice to be sent to them directly from our business office. So if that's the case, the earlier we know about that information, the better. In some instances, we have already met your student's full demonstrated financial need with need-based federal and institutional aid. And if this is the case, I may have to make some adjustments to your student's original financial aid package. Typically, what I would do first would be change subsidized loan funds to be unsubsidized loans, or reduce federal work study depending on the amount of the overage, or reduce the Creighton undergraduate loan. But what I won't take away or change would be any Creighton University scholarships or grant funding that your student has received. If you have any sort of concern about whether or not an outside scholarship may impact your student's financial aid package, please come see me tomorrow. I'd be happy to walk through that process. The earlier we can talk about it, the more flexible we are with the funding, and I can work with your student to make sure that everything is working out in his or her best interest, and that everything has been taken into consideration if a change does have to be made. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I'd rather have it happen now than in September after bills are due and things are paid and a change is made. That doesn't make anybody happy. So the earlier we can communicate about it, the better. Some other financing options that you might want to consider after you receive the bill or even now and wonder how to make up that difference. There is a parent loan option, and that would be a Federal Direct Parent Plus loan that I'll talk about on the next slide. There are alternative or private student loan options, which would be additional loan money that your students would borrow in his or her name to help pay for their education. Some other options such as 529 or educational savings plans, loans, employer tuition assistance, and then Anna is going to talk more about the payment plan option during her portion of the presentation. Plus loan. So this would be a loan funding that you would borrow in your name as the parent to help pay toward your student's education. And what you would be able to borrow would be up to the total cost of education, minus the other aid your student has been awarded. So there is not necessarily a limit, but it would be that annual amount. We would look at this each year. The interest rate is fixed and set by the federal government every July 1st. And for the 18-19 academic year, that interest rate is fixed at 7.595%. There's also a rather large origination fee that comes off the top of the loan, so you've really got to pay attention to that. If you're wanting to borrow, say, exactly $10,000 to pay toward the bill, you'd want to make sure that you took into consideration that 4.264% origination fee that would come off the top. Parents can apply for this loan right at studentloans.gov, and in the information that I send via email, there's a step-by-step instruction guide to how to apply for that Parent Plus loan if that's something that you're considering. They will check your credit and make sure that there isn't any adverse credit within the last 6 months. Repayment technically begins after the loan has been fully dispersed, although you do have the option to defer those payments for up to 4 years of undergraduate study. Again, the alternative or private student loan would be additional loan funding that your student could borrow in his or her name, along with a creditworthy cosigner. A cosigner doesn't have to be a parent, it just usually is if a parent is willing and able to co-sign on this kind of a loan for their student. These loans can kind of be all across the board as far as interest rates or repayments or making payments while your student is in school, selecting a fixed versus a variable interest rate. So it's really important that you do the research and find what would be the best loan for you and your student. Some have cosigner release options after a year of on-time payments once this loan goes into repayment. So they're all just a little bit different. Some go into repayment after 5 years. So if your student is looking at medical or dental or some other type of schooling beyond undergrad, that might not be the best loan option if the loan is going to go into repayment while still in medical school, say. So just a lot of different things to consider and to look at when looking at these different types of loans. There's also a parent or sponsor loan available. I think Wells Fargo has one, and I have brochures up here from the Sallie Mae version. And so this would be a loan that someone, either a parent or someone else, like a grandparent or another person that wants to help your student pay for college but might not have the funding readily available, that would be an option for that person to consider when the time comes for their assistance to be needed. As I mentioned, some families have other payment options available, such as educational savings plans like 529s or Coverdell, or educational IRAs. So to receive these funds, you would want to work directly with the plan holder to determine exactly how to get access to your funds. Some are easy and you just call them up and say, hey, I need $10,000 to pay tuition this fall. Some want an invoice directly from the business office to be sent to them before they will release the funds. So the earlier you communicate with your plan holder, the better, so that you know how to receive those funds or access those funds and can have them by the time the bill is due Some families borrow against home equity or 401k or a personal loan. If that is a route that you're looking into, you definitely want to speak with the lender of that particular program to make sure that you're completing all of the requirements needed for them to release the funds in time for school to start. If you're fortunate enough to have an employer with tuition assistance, you want to work directly with either your HR department or your supervisor to determine when and how they pay those funds, whether it's at the beginning of the semester, the end of the semester, if there's paperwork you've got to fill out, those different kinds of things. So just knowing kind of how to access those different options. So here's where I said I take over for Mary Ann, and I'll try my best. Some of you are going to be looking at a presentation that the slides are slightly different. Again, all the information is the same, the slides are just a little bit different. So Mary Ann is our Assistant Director for Student Employment. So she works with not only students who want to work on campus through regular student employment opportunities, but also through the Federal Work Study Program. And all of her contact information is here. I also have some of her business cards up here if you'd prefer to reach out to her directly and not through the generic student employment site. And we're all one in the same office. So any student at Creighton has the opportunity to look for a part-time job on campus. If your student demonstrated enough financial need based on the results of the FAFSA, I would have awarded him or her a federal work study amount in there. If your student was not awarded work study, there are other student employment options or opportunities available on campus. Really, from your student's perspective and from your perspective, they're the exact same. It's on the back end that they're a little bit different. Students who are eligible for work study, part of their paychecks get reimbursed to the department, whereas regular student employment, 100% of the student's paycheck is coming out of the departmental budget. But your student's getting the exact same paycheck, whether they're student employment or work study. So again, it's just really kind of all on the administrative end that it might be a little bit different. As I mentioned, if your student was eligible for the federal need-based work study program, it would have been part of their financial aid award letter. The maximum amount that a student can earn through the federal work study program is $2,200 for the year. And we're pretty strict about that $1,100 per semester. That boils down to about 8 to 10 hours per week. Some of your students, if you're local, might be able to put in a few more hours during breaks and that sort of thing if they stick around, or even if you're not local and your student sticks around for breaks. And so it's just, they can track their earnings on their Nest account. So it's important for them to be sure that they know what they're earning, and if they're nearing that 1,100 mark, might have a conversation with their supervisor to see if they can be moved into the student employment budget as opposed to the federal work study because they're getting close to their hours. It doesn't happen very often, but there are always a few each semester that exceed their work study eligibility. Again, we don't recommend more than about 9 to 10 hours per week. That's plenty. When your student is learning to balance life on their own, classes, homework, social life, work, studying, all of those different kinds of things, we don't want to bog them down with too many hours as far as working goes. Students aren't required to accept their work study offer if they were awarded it. It's just a way to help them out with some of their expenses. Students do get a paycheck every 2 weeks. It's not funding that goes directly toward their tuition bill. They have to actually work the hours, report their hours, and then they get a paycheck every 2 weeks based on the hours they've put in their previous pay period. And that's for federal work study or student employment. To accept their work study, it's part of the financial aid package. They can just accept that right on their Nest, and then they'll be required to complete an online work study agreement. They will look at and apply for jobs on our site called Handshake. It used to also be called Jobs for Jays. And that's where students wanting to work on campus through regular student employment will go as well. They must complete the I-9 process, which everybody has to do if they start a new job anywhere. It's proof of eligibility to work in the United States. For work study, Mary Ann will match up students with the jobs that they apply for on Handshake and then mail their assignment to them about a week before classes start with their supervisor contact information. And then students set their own schedules with their supervisor, so they're not working through class or anything like that. They will set up their own schedules and work directly with their supervisors. What's nice about student employment or working on campus would be that obviously supervisors are very flexible and understand that school comes first. And so if students have a big test or a paper, the department's going to be very flexible, whereas waiting tables at the old mattress factory might not be as understanding about them waiting till the last minute to study for a test. I don't As I mentioned, any student can apply for a job on Handshake. The students who are eligible for work study, they'll see a little FWS right before the description of the job when they go to apply for jobs. The proof of eligibility to work has to be done in person. Again, this is for anybody who gets a job anywhere in the United States has to provide this proof. And so what students need to provide, which they can do today, would be a copy of, or not a copy, but a passport or a social security card or a birth certificate. And they do have to be original documents. They cannot be copies. And so then they would fill out some of that I-9 paperwork that needs to be completed. Students will log their own hours and then be approved by their supervisors. We have a system called MyHR, and we all use it. All faculty and staff use the MyHR system. Students are paid every other week based on the number of hours they've put in the previous pay period. So what Mary Ann usually stresses is that every Friday, take action. You're either entering in your hours or you're checking to make sure you got paid and that the paycheck was the right amount. We really encourage students to sign up for direct deposit. Otherwise, they have to walk all the way to HR to pick up their paychecks, and that would not be fun in the rain or the snow or the ice or the heat. So it's really important to sign up for direct deposit. They do not have to have a bank that's local. You can keep your home bank. Just fill out that banking information. That can all be done while your student is here today and tomorrow. Or if you don't have the documentation needed to complete the I-9, if your student doesn't have that with them, then they can do it on move-in Saturday or even after they're here. A lot of families, the parents might not realize that these documents were needed now if they wanted to complete this information now. And so when you move them in, bring that information with you and then you can take it home with you, and that way your student isn't keeping it or you're not having to mail it through the postal mail. A lot of parents aren't comfortable with that, nor would I be. So if your student has the documentation with them to complete the I-9 today or tomorrow while you're here, definitely try and get that taken care of. Otherwise, we're available move-in Saturday, and we'll have a special room and everything available to complete this information. And I already went over what you needed to bring. Also, if you're local, we are here all summer, so can come in any time. Again, anyone is eligible to apply for employment on campus. And so students go to the same site called Handshake. We do also provide, if your student is looking for a job and can't find one through the Handshake website, they can go see Mary Ann. And Mary Ann will be happy to kind of walk them through the process, or, you know, if it's the first week of classes and they know that a lot of families are, or students are just getting situated and departments, thank you, sweetie, are getting situated with their students that they've been assigned, then they can, sorry, Debbie brought me some more presentations because I was going to run out. But Mary Ann will know, okay, well, there might not be a lot of jobs out there right now, but I know next week this department's hiring, this department will be hiring, you know, so keep looking or keep checking or check back with me. You know, she's very, very helpful when it comes to any student wanting to find employment on campus. And then the support continues as your student continues to be a student through our Career Center, whether it's internship opportunities or job opportunities. They put on a career and internship fair every fall. And so your students will become very familiar with the Career Center and the opportunities that they provide to our students. So don't feel like your student has to know right now what opportunities that the Career Center offers to them, because they'll be notified every year. So that's all that I have from financial aid and student employment. I'll turn it over to Ann to talk about the bill and billing statements and how all of that works. And then we'll be available for some questions at the end.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ann O'Dowd, and I am here to represent the business office. Our office is located in Creighton Hall, which is the older building right next to St. John's Church. We're on the first floor, and our contact information is listed on the slide. But I would encourage you, if you have any questions while you're here, please feel free to stop in. We're happy to visit with you. If you get home and think of something, you can give us a call or always drop us an email and we'll get right back to you. So as you can imagine, one of the main jobs of the business office would be to issue billing statements to our students for tuition and fees. We will be creating those statements later in July. They will, an email will be sent out to all of the Creighton students to their Creighton email account. And if they have you set up as an authorized party, then you'll also receive an email telling you when the statement is available to view. And I'll be going over the process to have your students set you up as an authorized party in a few slides, so we'll get through that in just a moment. The statements are always available to view online and to print if you wish to. So these are some of the things that I'm sure you'd probably assume would be on a tuition and fee bill. I would like to go over a couple of those. The first one I'd like to mention is the health insurance requirement. So Creighton does require all of our full-time students to be covered by a comprehensive health insurance plan. That doesn't mean that you have to select Creighton's plan. If they're still going to be covered under your plan and you want to keep them on that plan, that's perfectly acceptable. There is an online waiver process that you'll need to complete, and then that will remove that charge from their account. So if you go ahead and do that waiver before we send the bills out, you're not even going to see that charge on their billing statement. And I always encourage parents and students to get that taken care of as soon as you can, so there's no chance that you forget to do that. There is a deadline of September 7th to have that waiver completed, but don't wait that long because it's just so easy to forget things, and if you happen to forget it, then you'll be locked into that Creighton Health Plan for the entire year, and there's just no point in that if you have coverage and you want to keep your son or daughter on your plan. Freshmen will be assessed a small orientation fee on their fall bill. If they have classes that have labs associated with their courses, then they'll see a small lab fee for each course. And there are typically a few classes that faculty members have decided they want students to all have the same books and materials, all have it at the same time. And so we've entered into an agreement with our bookstore. Follett is our bookstore. It's a private company. And they will provide that information for the students, and the charge will appear on their student account billing statement. Otherwise, most books are not included as a direct charge on their account. We haven't been informed yet of which courses those might be for this fall semester, but we will be by the time the statements go out. So Sarah talked in depth about the financial aid awards. Just keep in mind that your award is split 50-50 between fall and spring, and that the loan funds will not actually be dispersed to Creighton until 3 days prior to the start of the semester, but we will go ahead and put those loan credits on the billing statement so that you know what to expect. It's just that we don't have the actual money here, and we often are asked if there's a credit balance. Well, I'd like to have my refund right now. Well, we don't have the refund available because we haven't actually received the loan funds. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Also, outside scholarships. If those scholarship funds have not been received at Creighton, you won't see that on your billing statement. But we do not want you to go ahead and prepay what you know is actually going to be covered by those outside scholarships. So for example, let's say you have a $1,000 Elks Club scholarship. It's not in by the time the bills go out. Just go ahead and theoretically subtract $500, 50% of that $1,000 award from your balance due, and then we'll hold that balance open pending the receipt of that scholarship. Okay, this is an example of what a billing statement format looks like, and I know it's hard to read, but I just wanted you to see the kind of the format of it, not necessarily what it says. But if you can see it, you'll notice that there is, on the right-hand side are the credits or the payments. So you would have already paid a class reservation deposit for your son or daughter. If they're living on campus, the amount that you paid was $350. If they're not living on campus, then you just paid $250. The difference is the $100 housing damage deposit. So that damage deposit is going to appear on your billing statement as a charge just to make the accounting work. You're going to be getting $250 toward your bill from that class deposit, but the $100 is actually held on account until the student actually leaves the residence hall system. And at that point, if there's no damage, then a refund will be issued to the student. And so just I wanted to explain how that works. Otherwise, the statement is just pretty much self-explanatory. I mentioned that an email will go out when the statements are available to view. So on the email, there'll be a link that you can click on to send you to the site where the billing statements exist. And we use a third party to create our billing statements. The name is Nelnet Campus Commerce. And so by clicking on that link, it'll take you into the Nelnet site. And I'll show you on the Nest in a few slides how you can go from the Nest directly into that site as well. So payment options. Nelnet also processes our online payments for us. Online payments in the form of an e-check. There's no additional cost to do that. But Nelnet does charge a 2.75% convenience fee if you choose to use your e-credit card. And these are the credit cards at the bottom that are available for payment. You can mail a check in anytime, payable to Creighton University. You can pay at the business office. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. We will be open on move-in Saturday from 10 to 2, or we also have a payment plan. The payment plan we refer to as the MET plan, which stands for Monthly Electronic Transfer Plan. And an email was sent out to all of our incoming freshmen back in May describing the plan. It's just an option. Payments are due at the start of each term unless you're on a payment plan. So it's not too late to start. This brochure, if you'd like to pick one up, has all the details on the back here describing what the deadlines are and step-by-step instructions. I also have a handout up here that will give you the tuition and fees that you'll use to set up a budget. Right now you don't have a bill, so you'd just be setting up an estimated budget, which would be tuition and fees minus any financial aid to come up with the bottom dollar, and then you can set that up as a payment plan if you choose to. This second handout has step-by-step instructions on how to sign up for the MET plan, and on the flip side it talks about authorizing parents or others to access the tuition account. There's a federal law called FERPA, and it's the right to privacy for students. So it's important, if you don't take anything else away from my presentation, to remember to ask your student to set you up as an authorized user. And then that allows the university to speak to you. Even though you may be paying for the tuition, if the student doesn't give us permission to talk to you in detail, we can't tell you any information. So I'll show you in just a moment where they can do that. There's a two-step process to have you as the parent have access to all the information that you're going to need. So one is to be set up as an authorized user to allow the university to talk to you and discuss the account. And that is addressed in this handout, the top part, the top paragraph. The second step is to have your student set you up as an authorized party in the Nelnet Campus Commerce site. And that will allow you to receive emails when the billing statements are available. And also, if you choose to make an online payment, that's how you'll be able to do that. So an important handout. So again, very important to have them take care of that for you. Also on the email, yes?
Does that authorization just cover the financial portion of
There's-
their time here, but not the other portions?
They have this choice to do 3 different areas. So they can authorize you for the financial, or their academic, or behavior. So from my view, the financial is really critical, because there's nothing more annoying for you as parents than to call in and ask for information and then we can't give it to you. And we don't like to have to do that either. It's really a hard discussion to have with someone. So please have them take care of that. There's no interest to go on a payment plan. There is a $25 application, and it's a semester-based plan. So right now you would be setting up a plan for the fall semester, and then around November they'll send out another email notifying you that it's time to start setting up a plan for the spring semester. If you have any questions, Melissa in our office is the coordinator, and she'd be happy to help you. Sometimes financial aid will overpay a student's account, and in that case, we will issue a refund, and we really encourage our students to set up a direct deposit of refunds so that it will go directly into their bank account. If not, we will send out a paper check, but the quickest and safest way to get a refund to our students is through that direct deposit method. That direct deposit of refunds is a separate sign-up from the payroll, from the Federal Work Study direct deposit. So it's two different sign-ups, but I'll show you where to do ours. Or we can hold the credit for the spring semester if you would send us an email asking us to do that. If there's a Parent Plus loan involved, we will automatically refund to the parent, or you can select on your application to give the credit to the student, or you can send us a short email authorizing us to issue the refund to the student. Unfortunately, we don't have capability of issuing a direct deposit to a parent, so that refund would come to you as a paper check and be mailed to you. This is our student accounts menu on the Nest. And hopefully you know what Nest stands for, but if you don't, it's nearly every student transaction. A few years ago, they had a contest with our students to determine a name for our student self-service portal, and that's what they came up with, kind of to go along with our Blue Jay theme, or mascot. So the second line down is where students can go into this site to sign up for a direct deposit of refunds. And if they want to go in directly through the Nest, that would be where they can view their account information, e-bills, and pay tuition. Sign up for the MET plan, and then authorize your parents or others. It doesn't just have to be parents. I had someone ask me if they could have a trustee signed up as an authorized user so that they could get a billing statement, and that's fine too. Health insurance waiver. You don't need to be concerned about the WAVE medical school yearbook. That's just for our senior medical school students. And the little red car at the bottom is where they will sign up for a parking permit. So the university does require students to have a parking permit if they're going to park on campus. The cost will be totally charged on their fall bill, but it covers them for the entire year. It's $360 this year. The portal is not open right at this present time, but it should be shortly after the 1st of July. And they'll just enter their car information, and then that cost of the permit will show up on their billing account statement. After classes begin, we'll continue to send out monthly statements if there is an unpaid balance. So if you're holding a balance open for that outside scholarship, you'll continue to get a statement until the funds are received. Again, we do say that payment is due by the start of the term unless you're on a payment plan. So the start of the term is August 22nd. You can certainly pay ahead once you get the bill if you choose to. We'll give you another week after that as kind of a cushion, and then late fees will start to be assessed after that following Tuesday. So classes start on Wednesday, you have through the following Tuesday, and then late fees will start to be assessed after that. And again, you can always access your account 24/7 once they give you access to that. These next two slides are just the step-by-steps on how to add parents or others as authorized users. It's a little small on your printout, so if you choose to, you can pick up that other handout.